All right, here we go again. Bringing my coffee, of course. One sec. Okay. So I'm off to kind of a late start today. I'm doing this thing where I'm documenting kind of on YouTube my thoughts and my experiences skateboarding. And this is my third day doing this. And, this morning I woke up and I was kind of wondering what I was going to talk about. I thought about talking about injury, which is something we all face as skateboarders, but I think I'll get to that to another time because I was actually inspired by what I woke up to when I looked at YouTube today. And the first was a video by one of Brian Arnett's channels. And the title was I Better at Skating in 2019? And the thumbnail had a thing that said, My Prime, ? Thought that was really interesting. And right after I saw that, I looked at my own channel to see I'd gotten some views on my second video from yesterday. And that was really cool. And a particular new comment from Noah John. It read, Rad, dude, subbed for your journey ahead. I can sense your enthusiasm and feel like this is just the beginning of the next level of epicness in life. I just picked it up again at 35, exploring the exploding Bangkok skate scene. First off, thanks so much. I really appreciate the comment and the subscribing and the positivity in that. And this got me thinking. I've had a lot of skateboarders talk to me about, hey, I'm just getting back to it at like 30 or, but they generally it'll be a thing of like, I think I'm too old to do this. Or, with Brian's video, who I'm assuming is a young man, I'd say in his early 20s and a very talented skateboarder. He's like, questioning, was my prime over? This has been something kind of fascinating that I've thought about myself. So I thought I'd talk a little about my own experiences with being in quote unquote prime, and hope that it encourages other people who are either wondering if they're reached their peak or are returning to it and feeling too old to do it again. And I want to let you know that that's entirely possible to come back to skating at any time, really any time. My advice would be to start off slow, but you can get back all your tricks. You just have to baby step it. I think another YouTuber talked about taking like Bambi steps or something to that effect, and it's great encouraging words. So thinking back to the beginning of skating, I started skating in the 70s, but to get up to speed, 1983 is when I actually started skateboarding on a regular basis and would like consider myself a skateboarder and interested in the culture, starting to look at the magazines, be influenced by the music, the dress, the culture, and just started to immerse in it. So a few years in, I'd say, 84, 85, 86, kind of starting to get better. And I learned from this experience something I hope I can pass on to people in any field they're trying to do. Because of my experience with skateboarding, I learned that 2 to 4 years into anything, really, you can start to excel at it. If you put the time in, basically, if you just love it enough to put the time in, and I suppose you could apply this into something where you just worked at something real hard, even if you didn't like it, to get good at it. It's just a numbers game. And I feel like anything you love enough to put that much effort into consistently over a 2 to 4 year basis, you will start to get good at. And so I started to see those results with my skating, and maybe not necessarily myself, because I think we all are filled with a sense of self-doubt and sort of like downplay our own abilities. But I remember one time in particular, when I was probably around 17 and been skating a couple years, I did a frontside wall ride on a lawn tramp against the wall. And this cat, Hayato, who I thought, and still do, the guy was just cool. He was in a punk band, he skated. And this was really neat, is that he dressed kind of like, I guess, what somebody who wouldn't know the difference, a skinhead, right, would be the cliche term you would use for that. Bald head, Doc Martens, um, suspenders, whatever, the whole nine. But he was also Asian. And so I always just thought, I mean, he was just the coolest, because he kind of reminded me of like Bad Brains, where just breaking down these stereotypes and just pushing against what was considered structured norms in these particular pursuits. And if you started skateboarding when I did, or when we did, that was like, that's kind of what drew you to skateboarding, because it was like a big middle finger to all this stuff that was so structured and telling you what to do, and you owned this thing that was all you, which was really important to a teenage kid with not a lot going on, and maybe some other stuff. So anyhow, I did a wall ride, and I heard, hey, he yelled out, yeah. And I said, oh, man, I got this first sense of like approval from my peers, and for my skateboarding, I was blown away, and that sense of acceptance, and like, it was just so just powerful. So continuing on, my skateboarding was getting better. And so I want to say my first prime was probably around 1989 or so. Now, granted, I'd been skating good in 88, 87, looking back on, I can say that I was, even if I didn't think so then. But I think when I was 21 is when I really pulled it together, and all the physicality and all the practice and all the skating and just everything kind of came to a head. And I'd say from 89 to 91 or so, I was in a prime of sorts. That was the first time I tried to get sponsored, which was very difficult to do back then. I rented a camera from what was right next to the Foster Fees. There was like a video store that rented cameras, $40 a day, a lot of money in 90, 91, Anyhow, I'll get into that whole thing too, the whole sponsorship thing at some point. But, I was getting to a point where I could physically see what I'm seeing in the mags. I can do this. What I'm seeing in video parts, I can land these tricks. Maybe there's a place for me in this. Anyhow, so that's one prime. I want to say ages 21, 22, something like that. So then skateboarding shifts and it changes, and there's a lot of really kind of late flip and stuff coming in, and basically the big pants, small wheels era. And I feel like in a weird way, I kind of fell out of a prime of sorts. And I did learn some of the tricks, and I was victim to all of the things that were happening, but I still wanted to skate like I was, right? So now, come around a little later, 94, I was skating at a high level then. I felt like I reached another prime. And I don't know why this works out, but if you stick with this for a long time, for some reason, it goes like this. And there's periods that you are skating at a higher level than others. And I don't know what it is, because I'm just skating the whole time, but I could notice a visible difference in my skating towards the mid-90s. It got better. And this is around the time I first got sponsored and eventually got my name on a board for pushing my skating. And I don't know, it just worked out. But again, get more into the sponsorship, the other stuff later. Just want to talk about primes, different times of primes. So I would say mid-90s was probably what I thought was really the biggest prime, right? That was, if I think athletically and the things I was jumping off and stuff. But then, I made an edit for my 55th birthday here, and the song, I'll put the credits in here, I can't remember it offhand, but the song was really clever. It was done to the I Can't Drive 55, but it was I Can't Be 55, and it's a really great song, and I put it in the soundtrack of this thing I made. And one of the lines in it, he says, or even in my prime when I was 35. And so I was matching up the skating to the ages there, and I thought about it, and I went, wait a sec. My mid to late 30s, when I looked at my skating from then, the experience, the power, like, it was there. I actually started to think I was better than when I was sponsored, professional, Then when I was coming up and felt like I had a chance at sponsorship, I was better later, looking back on this footage. Now I'm not doing as big as stuff, not jumping on, the roofs anymore, but I was still able to go like a launch ramp over a car or something like that. I still could go big. I was just going big in a different way. And I feel like in a lot of ways it was more powerful. It was stronger skating. So then this is when it started to break down. At 40, I remember, man, I'm still doing this stuff. I'm still able to go off a launch ramp over a car. When is this going to end? Like, I'm doing the same stuff when I was 19. And I had felt it slow down a little in that I couldn't go every day. And I remember on a trip to the barracks, that's when I really felt it. I was at the first BATB, and that's another story for another time. I went down there and skated for a few days, and I knew how hard it was going to be at 40 to skate 3 days in a row. That was going to be difficult. So I had felt some slowing down, obviously, but was still skating at what I consider, strong level looking back. So in my early 40s, that's when my knee went. I had kept skating on it because skating was going good for me. I was able to land my tricks. I was in a good spot. My left knee eventually gave. And that's kind of like when I didn't know what my body was going to give me every day. I had no way of telling if I was going to be able to skate that day or not. And that's kind of continued along for like the last 10, closing in on 12 years now or so, right? And then later it was the back end stuff. And again, I'll get into injuries, I'll get into sponsorship. That's another video for another time, but we're keeping on prime. So I guess my thing would be for people to understand is that, like, if you stick with this thing and keep doing it, you will have more than one prime. I was really lucky. I feel like I've been so lucky to have several different runs where I was skating at what I consider my best level or a high level. And I think if you're just consistent and you stick with it, you can experience that same road too. You can have particular highs. You can be in a prime more than once. Again, relating back to the 30-year-old or 32-year-olds who I talk to who are maybe just getting back into skating, you have more time than you think. The key is to just stay consistent and keep doing it. You can you can be better than you were when you thought you were at your best, and you may never think you can get back there. You can be better later. It can happen. Just be consistent, keep skating, and feel your body out. Feel your pace. Feel what's comfortable for you. And I will say, on the age thing, right? Like, just understand that age is relative. At 25, you feel old because all your life experiences lead you up to that point, and you are old. Shoot, for me, at 25, I quit smoking cigarettes. I started working out. I was on this big health kick because I was a quarter century old. That seemed old to me then. So it's all relative, whether you're 15, 25, 35, 40, 55, you're old. You just are, because that's your experience leading up to that point. All right, I'll leave, today's segment here, and we'll get into talking about some other stuff tomorrow. But yeah, just wanted to discuss primes, my own experience with it, and that you have possibly more than you know ahead of you. So keep with it. All right, you guys, have a great day. Peace.